changes in the political landscape of the Gambia cannot be overemphasized, as among host of other issues, they highlight a political development or that formed, as we indicated, that named Gambia as one of the smallest country in the world, but as the country that is the driving force behind the formation of the United Nations. It's also indicated in this book, and among host of other opinions and ideas of His Excellency and his foresight. One of the books is how the tragic consequences of British looting and misrule in the Gambia inspired the founding of the United Nations and its drive for decolonization January 1943 and beyond. And this one reads, "A Million Reasons to Leave the Commonwealth." As the titles of the book depicts, the consequences of the British misrules that heralded the founding of the United Nations. They are authored by His Excellency the President, and as we all are aware, about a month or 2 months ago, His Excellency decided, as head of government and responsible, and under the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, who is responsible for the conduct of relations and business within and outside the Gambia, and international organizations, and also to conclude such business as the 1997 constitutions empowered him. And he decided to withdraw from the Commonwealth. Among other reasons, as he put forward, were one, the Gambia was colonized by the British, and after independence, gaining independence in 1965, and there was an automatic membership of the 54 bloc of the Commonwealth. They were who were colonized, one colonized by the British, and the leadership of the Commonwealth was the Queen. And His Excellency reasons British occupations of the Gambia, as indicated in this book, for 400 years after 1965, and from 1965 to 1994, and from 1994 to date, he reasoned and analyzed the contributions that the Commonwealth, which is a wealth endowed by the former British colonial powers, and they are to enjoy the resources that the British looted in Africa and beyond under their colonies. Now, the resources under the Commonwealth of Nations, all of us, big countries or small countries, either you get independent in the 60s or in the 50s or in the 20th century or in the 19th century, we are expected to have an equal share of the wealth as the name depicts, Commonwealth. But 1965 to 1994, 1994 to 1990 to 2014, you cannot even count in any developmental projects in this country, from Koina to Kato, Bara to Pasamas, and Gunjur to Bolibana. Any development projects that worth $10,000 is to say it is the Commonwealth that sponsored on grant the Gambia government and the people of the Republic of the Gambia as a result of the resources that the British government looted into the Gambia. You cannot see it. Secondly, the descendant of colonialism, the descendant of human rights abuses, the descendant of poverty, the descendant of decadence, the descendant of lack of development in this country in the British colony battles at the time, and all their colonies throughout the world. They cannot teach us democracy, human rights, rule of law, and how to develop our people. These are some of the reasons His Excellency believes. Now, what is the essence of us as a nation and as a member of the United Nations and the global village? To be part of an organization that is still a neo-colonialist organization, because they will still want us to think how they think. They still want to rule us from Britain, from the United Kingdom, as Honorable Baboge and others indicated. If there is real democracy in the Commonwealth, if the Queen of England becomes the leader of the Commonwealth for a term of 2 years or 5 years, the next term, His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia could also assume the leadership of the Commonwealth. When he finished his term, His Excellency the President of the Gambia should be able to hand over the baton of leadership of the Commonwealth to Sierra Leone or to Canada or to any other Commonwealth nations. and any decisions, the resources of the Commonwealth, the secretariats, to decide how we should spend those resources. All the countries that are under the 54 then block of nations should have equal share, and they should be able to say how those resources should be shared among those member states. These are one of the principles of His Excellency the President. In 1943, in January, the then United States President, the then President of the United States of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, in January 1943, came to Banjul. How many of us as young people in this country, and even as adults, as old as 90 years old, can recall that the President of America once visited Banjul in 1943? In this book, if you read the contents of this book, you look at what the American citizen at the time, that 71 years ago in 1943 under the British colony of Banjul. There was an advance team that came 12 months prior to the arrival of the President, and they were to embark on an army mapping project for security reasons. Remember, it was time of the World War II, the Second World War, and the then President Franklin Roosevelt was the only American president, and was the first American president to leave the United States and travel overseas in times of war, when there is war. When the then Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army, Elliot Roosevelt, the son of the then president, arrived in the Gambia, and he was here for 1 year on a project. And what he saw, and the advance teams, as the arrival of the President of America was due, they advised President Roosevelt and the people down in the United States, as they were here and doing as expected of them. And they told him that in the United States, battles in 1943, that's 71 years ago, one, they don't want the American president to come to Banjul. They said there are so many reasons. One, Banjul was a capital which was abandoned by the British colonial empire. Banjul lacked development, and that Banjul was not fit for human beings to spend the night and to live in Banjul. And they highlighted one, they said there was not a single development, no infrastructure, no roads, no water, no electricity, and also the people of Banjul were full of unhappy people. There were a lot of diseases such as diarrhea, malaria, and the sanitation of Banjul was deplorable. It was an eyesore, and they told the President of America not to come to the Gambia. The same President of the United States of America, when he arrived, he insists he will come, because he was embarking on an expedition journey. For him, coming to Banjul and coming to Africa, it was a pride for him to explore other parts of the world. And it is worth noting that his first visit of Africa was Batos. And when he arrived in Banjul, his first impression was that Batos was neglected by the British after 390-something years of rule. And he said, him as the President of the United States and as the guest of the then Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, who was the leader of British Empire, including the United Kingdom and Gambia and Batos, and he has a Governor General here. Then he told him to abandon that held hall of his, that is the British, that's Banjul. And he said he will take it upon himself and to be the greatest advocate of decolonization, and for the British people to surrender Banjul and to abandon their colonies as a result of their failure to meet the growing demand of the people at the time, that's development. I will read few paragraphs. First of all, I will start with page 13 of the book, before I also come on to other sections of the book. I cannot read the entire books, but the objective is to explain some of the contents in this book. Now on page 13, President Roosevelt spent 4 days in bed in the White House, resting and taking sulfur to recover from what he wrote to the then Prime Minister Winston Churchill was his sleeping sickness or Gambia fever or some kind of bug that I picked up in that hellhole of yours called Batos. It laid me low and left me feeling like a wet rag, he complained to Winston Churchill, the then President of America. To recuperate further, he retreated